All right. Well, maybe we'll get things going, and as other folks join, we can welcome them in due time. So yeah, pretty quick one from me and a long one from other Zach. So you've got Team Zach on the line here today, which I guess makes it easy. If you have a question, you can just ask, yeah, hey Zach, and one of us will help you out. Um, there's a kind of from the community side of things, we've got just a couple of quick updates. I'll just start off on format today. Community update. So we'll go over some kind of interesting developments that are coming up in Bristlemouth, and we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. I think you might just be able to, unmute and say, hey, I have a quick question. If you'll hold those to the end, that'll be great. If you'd prefer to type them in the chat window, feel free to do that. We will be placing a recording up afterwards. So if there's anything you missed or you'd like to forward this on, feel free to do so. And then if you do have a question, we don't get to it, also feel free to jump on the forums. Zach and I will probably be on the forums a lot today as it's community day. So I'll kick things off here. For those that I think I've met some of the folks here, but not all of them. And yeah, I'm Zach, the community manager and developer relations lead at Bristlemouth. I'm also an engineer at SoFar. Today is field ops day, so doing a little bit of boat repairs on the side, but most of my day is spent helping the community find the resources they need, doing a little bit of prototyping on my own, and kind of configuring and specking out subsurface sensing. With me today, I've got Zachary Crockett. I'll let him do a quick intro.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I am Zachary Crockett, and I lead the firmware engineering team at SoFar Ocean.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. And yeah, so quick updates. I think we've got a couple of events that we're gonna announce or link to on the forum. These are in person and digital, so check those out. I think our next one, we'll have a May monthly updates, regular like first or second week of May. In this format, I think we have an in-person thing in Seattle on the 24th. So if you're in the area, please join us. We'll be doing a little bit of a show and tell, some hands-on. We're partnering with the University of Washington there. So really excited to get a little FaceTime with anybody who's going to be able to make it. And then the next thing is and Zachary will talk a lot more about this, but the next kind of few weeks uh, are really critical for identifying new features and updates, fixes, guides, examples, all that good stuff. We're just about to kick off a new effort for that. There is a forum post that you can reply to kind of collect some of those, but don't feel constrained to use that. Just reach out to us and let us know what you need or what you're interested in working on that you might be blocked on. But I don't want to take up too much more time because we do have a pretty kind of meaty update around that. And I think Zachary Crockett's going to kind of take us through that. So I'll turn it over to you.
All righty. Good morning, everyone, if it's morning in your part of the world. So we at SoFar Ocean are going to spend a great deal of effort over the next several months, and indeed the rest of 2024, focused on making Bristlemouth more accessible, more approachable, easier to use, especially from the firmware perspective. And as Zach mentioned, there is a topic on the forum where we're asking for anybody who has ideas of anything that you would like help with, places where you're getting stuck, or examples where you'd like us to lay out a path for you to follow. Please post there. Any and all ideas are welcome. We really want to make sure we are building the right thing that people actually need. Today, I'm going to talk about 4 things that we just at a high level, we know that we likely need to do in this effort. And so those 4 things are more examples, guides, and documentation, building an application coprocessor interface, increasing the portability, and a file transfer protocol. And I'll dive into a little bit of detail on each one of those and then open it up for questions. So let me talk about those first. So first, More examples, guides, and documentation. We all are already hard at work expanding the guides. In some cases, we know where there are gaps. Some of those are got a list here configuring the microchip's GPIOs and power outputs, an I2C example, a generic UART example for a sensor, an SDI12 example, and an example of building your own request response service, since this is new feature, a new capability we have added into the firmware. Beyond that, though, we absolutely want more folks to request examples and request topics that should be better documented. We don't know what we don't know, right? Like as you stumble and you find it's confusing, I promise you're not the only one. There are no stupid questions. Please, please, just let us know. And I would like all of you and everyone on the forum to contribute their own to the community. If you have a write-up that would benefit your fellow pioneers, please let us know, and we will help get it in front of more folks. We are all in this together. The second item I'm going to touch on is an application coprocessor interface. Now, this will probably be the most obviously impactful feature on the accessibility front because of the diversity of problems that can be solved this way. Our goal is to make it as easy as possible for you to connect your own device to a Bristlemouth moat and retain key Bristlemouth functionality. So your device in this case could be a Raspberry Pi or any Arduino compatible board. It could also be your own board that you designed, but just using a microcontroller architecture that we don't currently support in the core firmware, like a RISC-V chip or a different family of ARM processors. And right now, just again to sort of state like the current state of the world, right now you can wire up TX and RX and start talking. There's nothing that stops you from doing that right now. The problem is that then you would have to design every message you wanted to send across that serial connection. You'd have to think about what goals you were trying to achieve and what message would send the right info to let you achieve that goal. And then you would have to code all the handling of those messages on both sides, writing an app for the Bristlemouth dev kit to send and receive those messages, as well as code to run on the Raspberry Pi or whatever it is to send and receive those messages. We plan to create an app that bridges Bristlemouth functionality from the moat over a serial connection in a standard way that we haven't designed yet, to be clear. But then we'd like to create client libraries that you could use on these other coprocessors to speak in that same way. So the whole idea being just make it easier for you to connect your own device and still be, if not quite a first-class member of the Bristlemouth network, like still have most of the core functionality. Third project on this accessibility initiative that I'm going to talk about is increased portability. Now, some of this work in this direction you may have already seen from Charles Cross, user Spider Keys on the forum, getting Linux and an 8 and 1100 eval board to behave as a Bristlemouth node. That was a really cool project, and I know he is still working hard on that as he has time when he's not making products for customers at Mission Robotics. But we started, for a little backstory here, we started the Bristlemouth firmware as a mono repo. That means everything is all together. In some ways, this makes it easier to get started since you don't have to go hunting. You have everything you need all in one place. But it also makes it harder to find the most relevant libraries for any particular project that you're working on, since the code base is so huge and so diverse. There is a lot there, and a lot of it is frankly irrelevant to any particular project you might be working on, but it serves some other app, some other subsystem that at that moment you're not thinking about. Now, with that in mind, we would like to increase portability by teasing apart some of the core functionality into libraries with fewer dependencies. And like I was referring to Charles's work, he has had to do this to accomplish that Linux port. So we want folks to be able to easily include that, just that functionality in another app. The 8N2111 driver is one of those pieces. The BCMP neighbor discovery protocol. So if you want to have your own processor and plug it into a Bristlemouth network and be able to just, without you coding it, just say, discover all my neighbors, we want that to be an easy library you can include in a different application. And another one would be the Bristlemouth BFU, the firmware update capabilities that are possible over the Bristlemouth network, because being able to update the firmware on your devices once they are part of the network and in the field is a really crucial piece of functionality for any embedded system. Last thing, number 4, a file transfer protocol. A handful of posts on the forum have centered on designing a way to deal with transmission of larger data sizes like audio and video files. Now those are complex topics on any remote embedded system. And one piece of the puzzle that we are not tackling anytime soon is remote telemetry. I am pretty sure no one is interested in paying $10,000 for less than a minute of audio. Problem for another day. However, a much more approachable element of any eventual solution in that direction is a better high-level interface to transfer large files within the Bristlemouth network. So right now, again, it's possible, but super painful to accomplish this. And you'd probably be better off including any data storage that you need on a module that generates a lot of data. So if you make a camera module, you should probably just have an SD card or whatever it is. Oh, hello. The light's turned off on me. I'm not too dark. You'd be better off if you were going to do this today, including storage on a module that generates a lot of data. But we want to make it much more simple and reliable to transfer really large files in the Bristlemouth network so that in the future, for example, a UAV could have multiple cameras, it could have a hydrophone, there's tons of data being generated, and then there could be a single robust data storage module on the Bristlemouth network that all those devices are just sending their data to. And or eventual sort of consumers, once this ecosystem is really built out, could buy all those Bristlemouth enabled modules off the shelf, plug them together, configure them for your system, and then voila. Those are 4 examples of things that we want to tackle in this accessibility initiative over the remainder of 2024. And with that, I would love to open it up for just more questions. I'm going to get the lights to turn back on.
Thanks so much for that, Zach. Yeah, if you guys have any questions related to the kind of development plan today, please let us know. Unmute and shout them out. You can also paste into the comment section or chat window of Zoom. Also, if you have questions about other things, this is totally on board as well. We'd love to, this is our time to kind of answer things synchronously as opposed to on the forums or wherever you might find us. So please feel free. I might do the obnoxious teacher thing and pick on somebody for an update how it's going if we have enough dead space. Roberta, I see you've got the little hand symbol. Yeah, please.
Well, we would like, the spotter with the smart mooring and the Bristlemouth platform to be able to communicate with a variety of data sources on the Bali Strait, which is a sort of very closed system that could help us predict high waves. And one of the things that we would like is to have the Bristlemouth with smart mooring be able to transmit via VHF. And our partner in this endeavor, who is actually one of the developers of AIS used for weather data transmission, has suggested how the VHF could be connected. And he sent something over a few weeks ago, and I'm wondering if you had a chance to look at it and think about it.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for the application submission. We're recorded, so I'll probably avoid making any binding statements, but I think it was well received. I am tagging up with a few of the other engineers today, so hopefully you'll hear back from us this week. So thank you so much for that. It's really helpful for those of you on the call. It's a really interesting project to transmit live, in near real time, the latest weather over VHF, which is really cool. The how it all gets done remains to be sorted, but I think we're going to be encapsulate or transferring the weather data over in text format and reconstituting that or
Yeah.
sending it over
We all,
existing.
and we also, we've been able, obviously, to archive the AIS weather data, and we would hope to be able to do it in connection with the spotter on the
Exactly.
Bristol platform. So it's not just only real time, which we want, but also archived and analyzable. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. And yeah, it sounds super cool. And yeah, thanks for hanging on for an answer for us there. And I'll hopefully, yeah, I think you'll probably hear back something from us this week. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see a comment from Andre, which, yeah, heard loud and clear, essentially saying that a just when I was talking about increased portability, extracting a version of the ADIN 2111 driver, which is that's the that Ethernet interface, the 10BASE-T1L interface, to make that more portable to other systems, that is definitely high on our list. So hear you loud and clear. I also see that Sava says, I think we need to change the design of the housing with the electronic board and make the lid parallel to the board. It would be convenient for installation. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that, Zach?
Yeah. So I do. The first, I'll take that one head on. The kind of the tube geometry is really kind of a well-worn path for pressure vessels, especially as you try to go to deeper depths. Also, that tube is a standard part from Blue Robotics with custom end caps. So there's a lot of like transferability and fits. You can use it with other systems. But what you're talking about is actually like somewhere I would like to see us go, especially as we get more robust solutions or more dedicated field solutions that aren't necessarily prototypey. Having the board in a horizontal tray and having, being able to prototype from the top down would be nice. The challenge there for waterproof enclosures that you need to access time and again, more than once. The geometries necessary to like fit something in a project box or like an otter box and also achieve pretty high reliability and deeper depths is really tough. Almost all of the pressure vessels that need to go deep are going to be that cylindrical form factor. But what I would say is for kind of ruggedizing things or marinizing things, horizontal like kind of lay a tray where the board lays in it and then it's filled up with a potting compound or an epoxy after all the prototyping is done is like the ideal way to do it for things that you're going to, stick out in the water for a year or years at a time and not have to touch. I would say for things that you need to get access to, the tube is really kind of the best thing out there. I bet though, there's probably a web crawl that you could do to uncover some of the otter boxes that fit just right. I'll ask one of my colleagues, Eric Stackpole, is like he's just got a brain for fitting things into small project cases. So I'll see if he's got any ideas. But those would be the recommendations I would have. I would say that it's unlikely that we'll switch from the tube for the dev kits specifically, but there's nothing stopping you from taking that tube out. And we'll add on one more thing to that. The kind of the main critical piece of like, well, why can't I just move my board into any project case or put it anywhere I want is those Bristlemouth connectors, right? So you need that plug, that socket where it screws into to be able to transfer to a different case housing or potted module. I have a bunch of those. So if you have some prototyping that you want to do and you'd like to add Bristlemouth ports to them, hit me up on the forum or email zach@sofarocean.com. That one goes to me for some reason and not the other Zach, but like I said, we sit right next to each other, so it's fine. But yeah, send me an email, let me know what your needs are, and I'd be happy to ship you some extra parts. they're pretty interesting to install. So we'll hopefully be able to support you in that, get you going. Awesome question. Thanks. And then we got another question from Andre, or comment. Let me read that real quick. Extending spotters power delivery. Yes, yes. Andre is on the right track with the comments, the desires. Those are also in addition to the Ethernet compatibility or Ethernet connectivity. Higher power would be amazing. I think there's some limitations on what we can do right now with what we have. I think we're kind of maxing it out. There is some opportunities we're chasing. I don't know exactly how much we can say about it because the deals aren't signed, but there's a government grant in the works that could allow us to pay for the development or allow us to would require us to have a higher power version of Bristlemouth. And it's like, wow, why don't we use that? We can make it public afterwards or during the process. So there's the possibility of doing that. It's probably closer to the end of the year. Again, it's not something I think that we can talk about yet because it's bizarrely tied up into a contract, which most of the Bristlemouth development is not, which is why we're doing it in more of an open fashion. But all this to say, I think you'll be able to get higher power eventually. And then there are some posts on the forum that have kind of some workarounds, like different places you can connect power to the board itself or to run off a separate power source entirely. None of those are super elegant, so we'd all love to see more power. And then let's see. Got another question from Saba. So is it possible to use one, I'm assuming DevKit as a Wi-Fi antenna extension? Yeah, potentially. I think we're somewhat limited on bandwidth, and power, but maybe Zachary Crockett, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Let's see. I think this would require some more brainstorming or designs to understand. So Wi-Fi doesn't transfer through water, one thing. So we have to, if we're going to have a Wi-Fi module attached to a float, something separate from the spotter. So then the smart mooring cable went to a different float and there was, Wi-Fi out there. I know there is a forum post where somebody is at least exploring these ideas. If you search for Wi-Fi on the forum, you'll find it. One as a Wi-Fi antenna extension. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, and others are asking the similar questions. These are difficult engineering challenges. It wouldn't be simple, but anything is possible with enough work. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to find that forum post, and it's no surprise, it's Mr. Andre again with the good ideas. Keep them coming. We love it. I think Roberta, you have your hand up again. Is that left over from earlier, or is this a new question?
Leftover.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, unless there's anything else, I hate to leave early, but I don't want to force everybody to stay on if we're concluded. But are there any other questions? Anything else you think we can help with? Is there any feature requests you want to get in now instead of having to write them on the forum? We got one from Taylor Gill here. Suggestions on some alerts that we can or should program into the Bristlemouth to help us monitor the buoy. Yeah, fascinating. That's a great question. Yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
feature to
Yeah.
sort of add to our list here. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. So there is a humidity sensor on the spotter. I don't know that it's currently talking over Bristlemouth now, but there's also a humidity sensor on your board, right? And I think that's what you are on your Bristlemouth board and your development board. And I think that would be a killer alert to have, right? Not much you can do about it because it's such a small space, but if you see it creeping up over time, you might go get some desiccant. You might look for a hair in the O-ring. That's an excellent one. Let's see what else. I really love a heartbeat. I love to know if my device is doing what it's supposed to be, even if it's just like everything's fine. And so depending on your monitoring needs, generally I think, and thinking about your project specifically, I can think, you probably don't need all of the live data all of the time. That could be a solution. Another solution could be, a daily update of how many data points were collected. And if you're missing some or it's not checking in, that could be a cool alert to build in. But I think just things to watch. The humidity is great. The power level you're getting over Bristlemouth is really great. The power consumption would be interesting. There's some complexity in measuring the consumption over time, but you could keep an eye on that voltage. Um, I think that would be the two that I would look at. Beyond that, good question. I don't know. I think as we develop more infrastructure between the Bristlemouth payload and the spotter itself, there's other things on the spotter that'd be interesting to know, like how full is your SD card? That's future stuff. Whether you're connected over cell or Iridium, these are things you can see on the dashboard. But if you're consuming all the data in one place over the API, it might be nice to bring some of that spotter data along with it so that you don't have to keep both of the things that are open. It's also important to mention the spotter dashboard also has the geofence and the time fence alert, both critical features for me and all of my deployments. Again, that's not being piped over Bristlemouth to your development kit yet. But that is something that I would consider setting up if you don't already have it on the dashboard. And then again, in the future, somebody's watching this recording next year, being able to grab some of those hooks from the API and send them all to one place would be really, really helpful. Yeah. So again, to recap, humidity, battery voltage, SD card size, full, not full, monitoring for a number of messages per day. That's one that I find is pretty helpful because if you see that go down, maybe it's getting submerged and not getting that last, satellite message off every day. That'd be helpful. Interesting question. Interesting question. Back to Andre, he said, linking bottom payloads with a moving tether. Any ideas? Oh, slip ring. Yes, this is a gold, 3 gold stars for the day there, Andre. You have the eye on the prize for what's really important. Yeah. So what Andre is describing here is if you have a payload or a sensor on the bottom of the seafloor, and then you have it going up to the buoy, as the buoy moves in the water and rotates and orbits, there's a bunch of torsion that can be built up in the mooring, and this can cause braiding, it can cause hairballs, it can cause submersion. If you're in a place where the current and the winds are all the same every day, it's usually not an issue. But how do we resolve that? We have not found a solution to this. This has been one of those problems that's been really, really tricky. The kind of the classic, oil and gas or ROV, commercial grade ROV solution is a slip ring, where it's a device that allows mechanical movement with electrical connectivity or conductivity throughout. Those are frightfully expensive. Obviously, if they just need to work in the air, you can get those from lots of places for not so much. But for something that works underwater, it's really, really expensive, and they're really big too. We have not found a low cost solution for that. The only I have 2 crazy ideas that aren't great and one really good idea. The really good idea is we have tried to put everything that we want to mount on the seafloor onto the node right at the bottom, and then fastening that node as close to the bottom as possible. So for our pressure sensors, obviously if your pressure sensor is moving up and down, it's getting weird readings. The closer to the seafloor you can put that, the more constrained you can make it, the better. And then we add a ton of strain relief up that cable. So we use rubber wrapping, vinyl tubing, and things like that to make sure that that cable can't bend over. And so that's helped us out. If your payload gets much larger or it literally cannot move, like you're doing single wave analysis, or there's some, other, yeah, like kind of what is it, ADCP, some other acoustic process where if it's moving, it's not good. That can be tough. And the 2 crazy ideas I have are you are able to get very short distance Wi-Fi transfer. We have seen this work in like 2 to 3 inches of water or less. After that, it really dies down. That's not a great idea. Super power intensive. The kind of better idea is acoustic, right? There are acoustic modems, water linked. I've just ran into them at a conference earlier this year. They've made so much progress on lowering the cost of acoustic modems point to point, but they're still frightfully expensive and power hungry. But that could be a cool project. If you think each of my Bristlemouth nodes can also be an acoustic uh, uh, client or access point, that opens it up to being able to do a lot of things on the seafloor. There is one pioneer, I don't remember the name right off the top of my head, who's working on acoustic modems as well. So we might see that in the future. Yeah, sorry, I'll look around and see if there's any other new slip rings out there, but that would just be ideal. Think we've got another question from Sava here. How do you get a new device to measure current underwater? Okay, this is man, you guys have great questions today. This is also a great question. Um, yeah, so there are kind of the main way to measure ocean current. I'm assuming ocean, not electrical current here. The main way to measure ocean current right now is through acoustic Doppler effect, and so that's the ADCP I was talking about earlier. This is a profiler. It shoots a beam in a cone, measures the current at multiple levels. Very big, very expensive, very power hungry. There are smaller devices that do this in a more limited fashion. We actually, so far, has just announced that we have a Bristlemouth enabled current device. So we've taken an off the shelf, I think it's the Andara Z Pulse. I don't remember the 3-digit numbers that come after that, 380, 480, or something like that, but it's a pretty neat little piece of kit. And for a few $1,000, which is a lot less than some of those larger pieces of equipment, you can have a Bristlemouth enabled that will work on your system today, a Bristlemouth enabled single point current node, and that will send a beam out horizontally and measure currents with a very high degree of accuracy. If you were thinking more, I want to build something that does that, that's also interesting. I think the price could come down if we were innovative about how we built our transducers and how we do all the digital signals processing. Cool project. Would love to see that on the Bristlemouth platform. But as a commercial off-the-shelf integration, that Andara Z Pulse is super mighty. It's really cool. And I think we've got 20 systems out already, and 4 to 5 of them are collecting current data currently. So current data currently. I'll when when I get this recording up, I'll post a link to the current meter so you can check that out. Super cool. Got another comment here. Wi-Fi is not such a crazy idea. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's not such a crazy idea. If they're two pieces are close enough to each other, even if they're moving, you could imagine that perhaps it's a small amount of data transfer. We experimented with some weird ideas like that back in the ROV days, but it was just so kind of power hungry and interesting. It was interesting. I'll put it that way. But yeah, it's not that crazy, but it's a little crazy. We're up here. I think we've got about 10 minutes left on the recording if we needed to use it. So I'll happily answer any other questions that you guys might have. Awesome. Well, I'll close slowly in case anything comes in last minute. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Zachary, thank you for joining us as well and giving us a detailed explanation, description of all the things that we're working on here. Super excited to see some of those. As always, please join us on the forums. And I think the call to action from today is think about the features you'd like to see, think about the things that have blocked you. Please surface those to us so that we can help prioritize what to work on. And I think the next chapter is, pretty interesting. I think there's the opportunity starts to emerge for some real core development and user contributions to the code base. So if you guys are waiting on that feature and it's not where it needs to be, please get in touch with Zachary and let us know if you want to help, because there's a ton of really cool projects, some of them big in scope, some of them small, that we'd love to see. And we'd really like to get things kind of get the flywheel kind of turning for this user contributions, and some of the repo work that Zachary was talking about should make a lot of that easier. Any closing remarks there, Mr. Crockett?
No, other than a slight follow-on to what you were just saying. In order to help enable more folks in the community to see what work we're planning firmware-wise and to be able to contribute, I definitely want to, on GitHub, where the Bristlemouth organization keeps its code. I am going to, at some point, create some mechanism, whether it's GitHub projects or a file where we just list the initiatives, whatever it is. I'm going to create some public mechanism, some public place where that stuff is written down and where people can more easily see like what projects are there to be grabbed off the list and claimed and worked on. And we would really love to have more folks in the community helping out. We don't, we at So Far are really happy to seed the ecosystem here, but we don't need to be the only ones doing it. And I would love to spend my time sort of helping more folks out in the community, building up their skills, getting oriented to this firmware development environment, and getting ready and rocking contributing firmware.
Awesome. Thanks. That's such a great note to end on. Everyone, thanks again for joining us today. The recording will be available on the forum. Also, check out the events section of the forum. Some other in-person and virtual events showing up. Thanks a lot, guys.